Today's guest has spent the last 22 years building a career where technology and business speak the same language. She started deep in the code at Tribune, doing the AWS migrations, mobile architecture, the technical foundation stuff. But somewhere along the way, she figured out something that not everybody gets. Technology isn't just about technology, it's about what it enables. Stay with me because things get interesting. At Critical Mass, rising from technology lead to technology senior vice president, leading teams through major transformations. And that's not all. She has taken her gift, the ability to see the big picture, to places like Sundance Institute, where as Chief and Technology Officer, she directed the entire team ecosystem through the festival. We're talking mobile, web, streaming. So when I say she speaks human, that's not an exaggeration. She speaks code, business, mission, and she's genuinely good at explaining why that matters. Today, we're diving into her story, the people who shaped her, and the story that usually stays under the rug. Well, after that introduction, welcome, Phaedra. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. That was a fabulous introduction. Hope I can live up to it.
Of course. Before we dive into your story, I had to look the name up, and I hear it means bright. I love that because there's something about that word, bright, that to me, it sounds kind of destiny.
My name is very unique. My name does mean bright. It also means royal and true. And all three of those things, right, well, you it from that, to me, just means to illuminate a dark corner. So part of my job, part of my goal, part of what I play kind of everywhere I go is illuminating those dark corners, showing those things that are hidden, to come up with holistic solutions that can be applied to whatever the day's problem is. So that is the role I play. And loyal, basically, you could see, like, if anyone wants to go see my work history, if I am with a place where I feel valued and I'm making contributions, I tend to stay with them for quite a bit of time. I have had some very long tenures in my career, which is evident of that. I have been married for 21 years, it's evident of that. You get me in the corner, and we get along really well. I'm sticking around for long.
I love that. I love that. And I also have to add, we're going to go into being married for 21 years and a bit, but before I do that and lose track of everything, I also think that your name, and if this is going to sound totally weird, but stick with me. It's very Chicago. And I mean that in the very best possible way. There's something about the people in Chicago. There's this energy. We got Shaka Khan, Michelle Obama, yay. We have Law Roach, the first image architecture, Zendaya's stylist. We have Quincy Jones, Kiki Palmer. A bunch of people that aren't people who waited to be invited at the table. They built those. They saw something that needed to exist and then made it happen. There's this relentless energy, go-getter, unapologetic thing going there, and it's like people refuse to let their light be dimmed. And I feel like, starting with the name, starting with how you come across, I'm delighted, I'm fascinated with you, and I'm curious because I look at your career trajectory, and from those early days coding at Tribune all the way through building a whole ecosystem at a space where it was not necessarily, built for us. And I want to know, in your particular case, where do you think that comes from, that drive to go forward?
I think it comes from a couple of different places. One, you mentioned Chicago, and I don't think it's necessarily a Chicago thing. It's the Midwest. Very practical texts, very goal-driven spoke. You will see us have a relentless focus on kind of what we want to achieve. And I'm seeing that from people in my circle. Like, I've lived in the Midwest my entire life, and my family circle, my friends that embody that. It's just part of the culture here. We're tactical, we're practical, we're very nice. So we are also very, we kind of go after what we want. The other thing that I think shaped me, so I am originally I was born in Chicago Heights, Illinois, grew up in Gary, Indiana. So I'm a Midwest girl, playing kind of back and forth my entire life. Being a Midwest girl, I grew up in church. Like, grandmother was church mother. We were in Bible study on Wednesday night, like Sunday all day, the whole thing. And one of the things that always kind of stuck with me growing up was this notion that your gift will make room for you. Do it to the best of your ability, because you have no idea who's watching. You have no idea what doors that's going to open. You have no idea how that's going to help you in the long run. So part of that is that gift make room. So just do what you're good at. And do it not for accolades from other people, but do it because you like it. Do it because you're good at it. Do it because you want to grow in that respect. My mom, I think she just expected excellence. Everything with excellence.
Period. I can relate because with everything you just said, because it's not even about a thing of, yes, getting recognition, but because something was still in you, you have to live, up to that and just be excellent in everything you do. And because I want to understand a bit more about how you got here, we kind of have to go all the way back to young Phaedra in Chicago. What was she like?
Well, I guess stereotypical. I've always liked learning. So he's been an avid reader. Now, what you will be surprised to find is that I do not like reading nonfiction, reading biographies. So a big reader of fantasy. Give me an alternate universe. Give me space. Give me witches and warlocks. Give me shapeshifters. Any day of the week. And when you're reading those stories, you learn things. Like, even though it's like, far-fetched, unbelievable, you learn things. And in the process of learning things, you also grow your imagination about what is in the realm of possible. As a younger person, I've had my nose in a book in time. I was always want to go to drive-in to see the latest whatever. One of my first experiences that I remember watching Batman with Michael Keaton. The Joker, I remember that to this day. It was like the best ever. Yeah, moving up, I was very much nerd. I have one younger brother. He's 5 years younger than me, so we're very close now. But growing up, we definitely had that sibling thing where he was the annoying little brother. Childhood. And I had such a huge family. Like, my mom is one of 12, and it's an extended family. We still live in the Midwest. So growing up, my friends were my cousins. And we talk out all the time. So very, just kind of free, fun-loving way to grow up, I would say.
I love that. I also agree with that. Reading teaches you stuff, and I think that it breaks that programmation of, oh, I'm here and I'm supposed to just stay here, or oh, that's impossible, because you're reading all these stories that show you that actually impossible is nothing. And we can see that reflected in your life. So we're going to move forward, and you're applying to college, and I'm very curious because you're talking about reading. I would have expected you to say something like, oh yeah, I was looking into literature or something like that. What got you into computer engineering?
My dad is a mechanical engineer. He was always tinkering and bringing stuff home and playing with things. He had helped me tinker. I did a science project at one time where I wanted to build a solar powered lawnmower. Like, you got put grass to the gas. We got a little motor, and he helped me connect a little battery to it, and we kind of figured out how to get it to work. It didn't work all that great. I think we got the motor some whole yard, but
I mean, you made it happen.
well, I wanted to be some type of engineer. I was never really girly. Always liked to tinker. So I knew it was going to be some type of engineer. I just didn't know what. In high school, we started learning basic programming. It was the coolest thing. And the coolest thing about it was the instant gratification. You didn't have to wait to see a result. See it immediately. Say, oh, that worked good. That didn't work. I need to tweak this. And then when you get it to work, I think many folks who are in technology experiences, especially like software engineers, you get it to work and there's just this profound sense of accomplishment. There's this instant gratification of it all. And I liked that. So I decided, let's do computer engineering. So at first I thought I wanted to go to school, get a degree, and go work for like IBM, test, something like that. So I applied to all these engineering schools. So I applied to Purdue, I applied to MIT, I applied to University of Michigan, like all these great engineering schools. I accepted to all of them.
So how did you make your choice?
My dad made my choice in Indiana, and Purdue is one of the best engineering schools in the world. Like, yeah, you got a scholarship at MIT, but it's still going to cost me more than just sending you to Purdue.
You got a personal scholarship. So you're going to.
Okay. Good thing you applied to all of.
I applied to Purdue because my dad was like, you need to apply to an in-state school. Now,
Purdue's got great engineering schools. That wouldn't be a loss if I went there. So yeah, and that is where I ended up.
You could have gone so many different directions with that bright energy of yours, but you still chose engineering. So here's what I'm wondering. When you walked into those labs and lectures, how was it like being one of the few women there?
it was an absolute culture shock. So the first year, it's true, you go into these big lecture halls and you see all these people. And the first few weeks,
Started getting close to the end of the semester.
start seeing less people. It's shrinking, yeah. And then you can spend like a semester where you're in those smaller labs and things like that. You're not in the big math classes anymore. And I'm looking around and I'm like, so it's like 3 other girls in here.
Okay. Were you the only black girl in there?
Yeah. Yeah, in a lot of cases, at first, no, but as the courses started thinning out, 100%. And a lot of times I was the only female, distinction of being both. Do you know if you would call that a distinction?
But it is definitely an experience.
And here's something I've been wondering. You've led teams through massive innovation shifts, and what's interesting is that you're genuinely great at explaining complex technology stuff to people who don't live by code but are, important stakeholders. They're making decisions, and I wonder how much of that comes from the fact that you get both worlds. Like, you speak engineering, but you also understand business strategy. You're not just translating code into English. So I'm thinking that your whole experience at university definitely formed you as an engineer. But what happened there that has made you so good at explaining these things?
You know what I had to figure out? And it took me a while because when I first came into school, you heard me say it was a culture shock. Student. I had never got in my think to college, got my first app. I literally broke down in 2 years. It was just like, what? So one of the things I had to learn was how to talk to people, to come at them at an angle that they would be open to helping me. But it was very much the other in cases. So I kind of had to find my people. And I ended up finding my people, great big friends who were all guys. And they were people of color, some Asian, some Hispanic, some were black. I had an apartment on campus. I would cook dinner for them. We'd have study sessions. So I cooked and they'd come, we'd study. It was great. It's like I had a big role period or something to learn how to my friends. They would hear me because a lot of my professors had biases. They were like, oh, so you're not going to last long anyway because women normally don't last long in my class. Like, I had to learn how to navigate those waters. And over time, I wouldn't say that I perfected it because you never sound to perfect that. You just kind of get better at it. But I've learned that the best way to explain these very complex things is to come at them in a way where, like, how is this going to benefit them? What is the impact to them? How does this affect them? And explain it in those terms because then you get a listening ear. Then they're curious about what you're saying. If you come with just a text, people who are not interested in that,
they're going to zone out. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And wow, I'm just hearing like things that happened to me in school and I'm feeling like, okay, I was not the only one crying because I got an F. I was, okay, I'm not going to be good at this. And my family were like, girl, calm down. That just highlights how important it is to have a support system. You mentioned before you come from a big family. You have always been surrounded by, cousins that were your friends. Then you created this community of people that not only spoke your same language, but shared some commonalities and also some differences that made you push through. And I think that's so valuable and important to highlight, especially in an industry like ours that's so, cutthroat. You have to be good. And not everyone has like that skill of being able to connect and at the same time do what they do and excel. Yeah, that gives me something else to think about, but I'll bring it up later. I have to say that the first time we met, it was during a P1, a Priority 1 crisis. It was on Halloween evening. Everyone wanted to log off, be with their families, but the work had to happen. And I remember so clearly your tone, and you were so relaxed, and your husband was dancing and taking care of the kids. That showed that he's supportive, and he was supporting you while you were doing your boss thing. And it really stuck with me because that matters. And that makes me move to our next topic, which is your love life. Tell me, how did you guys meet?
Actually, we went to high school together. He was senior in high school, was freshman. Speaks like friend of friend type thing. I went away 4 years of school, came back, and went to a house party. And it was at his party.
Reconnected, and the rest is history.
Okay. And I think that the partner you choose definitely sets the tone for your life. They can either help you make it or break you. But it seems like you chose well. There is a question here that I love to ask my guests, but in your case, I'm going to reframe it. If your life were a movie and you were handing out a award for best supportive character to your husband, what would you say to him?
Oh, this is such a good question because I am not sentimental at all.
I think we say thanks for being, I wouldn't say a silent partner, but knowing how to switch is key. He knows how to just show up. Like if I haven't eaten all day, he'll just pop in the office with, hey, you want lunch? He'll just bring me a salad or something like that. It's very good at anticipating what I'll need before I can even articulate it. And likewise, I'm very good when he needs a break. So like, see, kids are over and he's looking at me, come on, kids, back TV, come sit with Gigi, let's go hang out. So you're pretty good at anticipating
when each other needs support or when each other needs a break.
I love that. And I really feel like, yeah, he pours into you, you pour into him, and it's like a very, very beautiful balance. And you know what I'm realizing? Yeah.
Especially in a long-term relationship.
Exactly. It's going to be from and roses because life. So you have to have somebody that kind of understands you and can support you and knows when to come in strong, when to back off.
And I'm realizing that sometimes it's hard to do that, for a month, let alone 21 years. Like, tell us what's the secret aside from, that balance and knowing each other so well and being able to show up. What else would you think is the secret sauce?
I think every day you have to get up and choose.
Yeah.
So every day you have to get up and re-choose again. It's like, hey, this is my choice and I'm going to stick with the same choice today.
It's difficult, but at the same time, it's so simple to just break it down to one day at a time. Let's do one day at a time.
I think you
the life happens and you don't always know what's going to occur. And a lot of times the things that occur are completely outside of your control. Accident, storms, a family member has an issue or whatever. So you just have to get up every day and choose. Choose life I chose is the life I want. And then realize that every day you get a set of new choices.
Yeah.
To make changes or adjust, you can do that too. You're never locked in.
Yeah. I'm realizing that the fact that you can be both genuinely strategic and powerful in a room full of strangers, it's something that's not just a personality trait. It comes from somewhere and it feels like that's built. So I want to ask you, how do you think your family's support and your upbringing have equipped you to lead the way you do?
I think that I have been surrounded
by strong women my entire life. Basically around my mom and her sisters all the time. She has 4 sisters and they're all strong in very different ways. We call her Sweetie J. the sweetest person me, but she's also very strong. So she's sweet, but she's not a pushover. And so through her, I kind of learned the art of finesse. Learned to, I don't want to say manipulate such. I do want to say be able to speak with kindness to get the result that you want. You don't always have to come in, strong. My mom is she's a very stubborn lady, very kind, but she could be very stubborn. So from her, I kind of learned know when to hold your ground and know when not to give in. And so like from each of these ladies, I picked up something different. And, my grandma, she took care of us after school. We were growing up, so my grandfather would pick all of us up, through the circle. You go to my grandparents' house, my grandma would be cooking dinner or whatever. And she had 12 kids. Like, I always admired her. Like, she had 12 children. So for 24 years of her life, she was having kids and raising kids. And she turned around and supported her grandkids, too. And that type of just silent strength, regardless of how hard it is, to just show up every day and be your best. Not for yourself, but for
Everybody else around you. I'll never forget that.
I love it. And it actually connects to something I wanted to bring up because recently we were both in a meeting together and I couldn't help but notice that something behind you. That sign. And of course you're laughing because you know what I'm talking about. She's going places. And when I asked you about it, you told me it was a gift from your mother-in-law and your sister-in-law. And I just had to sit with that for a moment because that's the kind of thing you give someone when you know them, when you see their potential before even they do sometimes. And here's where I want to land this. At this point in your career, people might look at everything you built at the Tribune, Critical Mass, Sundance, the teams you've led, the innovations you've championed, and they might say, she's done it all. What could possibly be next? But I don't think you're done. And I think you're just getting started. So how do you envision your next chapter?
You mentioned my newsletter earlier. That is part of it. I want to leave behind a legacy of influence. So I want my experiences to be able to help other young ladies grow their career, know how to navigate some of these spaces without falling into the same pitfalls. And so I started the newsletter with that intent. So that is part of it. And I'm not really sure where that's going to lead. And I'm not really sure how far that's going to go. And I'm not really sure how else I can affect that. But looking at this next career, the first half has been about achievement, right? Going progressively from a doer to a leader. And now I'm like, okay, I'm at this leadership level. What next? Decided that leaving behind a legacy of influence where I can have a positive impact on how others can navigate and grow their careers is kind of where I want to land, because even though I had some strong female role models and mentors, I did not have a representative of what I look like in the same roles, right? This high up with senior leadership, being in the C-suite of some of these well-known companies and brands. And so I would love to be that for others.
I love that because sometimes we have the role of creating the path, and there's people that they really are great at that and they engage very well with that. But for me, it's not only about creating the path, but leading others to walk through it as well. And not necessarily they need to do exactly the same thing we did, but just knowing that, hey, there's this space for you here. Go crazy. I love that. And I think it's so important, especially in our communities, because we don't necessarily always see people that look like us doing things that we can only dream of. And it's so important to have that representation. What you just said about where you're heading, it actually connects to something I want to ask you about. Because you're not just someone who sits on the sidelines waiting for things to happen or for the industry to happen for you. You're the person who's always thinking 3 steps ahead. And I would be irresponsible if I didn't ask, what's your take on AI? because I'm a fan of your stuff, and I remember reading something that absolutely stuck with me. You wrote, and I'm quoting, "The professionals seeing the most career momentum are the ones who stopped competing at the execution level and started operating at the strategic level. They use AI as a force multiplier."
Yeah. And I fully stand behind that. In my opinion, this I will call it like innovation revolution is significant. It's impacting the industry much like moving to the cloud did years ago, where everybody was moving from their on-prem facilities to hosting their environments in the cloud. It's very similar, kind of huge shift. We do work or we operate, the new opportunities that it's opening up, the new types of work streams and things that it's opening up. So in that sense, I feel like AI is a tool. Cloud environments are a tool. It is a tool for us to execute growth. And we need to be more strategic, because if we just do execution, we just doers. AI, that's where it plays. It is an execution tool. But if we could be strategic in how it is applied and how it is leveraged, how we bring it into our work, what is the ROI we're trying to get? What's it that we're trying to achieve? By incorporating it, we then elevate our ability to play a larger role.
And I love that, because everyone out there is panicking, thinking like, oh, it's the end of my job. And there's a lot of fear surrounding that topic. And I really wanted to quote you because it was important for me to express to our audience what's the framework behind what we're doing, especially here at Critical Mass. And you talk about three things that growing professionals are doing right now, which is directing AI, prompting with strategic intent. They're building visibility around their thinking, not just the output. And I think that's where we take things to the next level, because a lot of our clients are just using AI because everybody else is using it. And that's our role here, to make sure that we're using those tools in a way that not only supports the goals of our clients, but also enables the people doing the work to still bring a lot of value. And for people who are afraid, I'm wondering, like, am I directed out, which is hunting for anyone in this current job market and world situation? And what would you say for people who are struggling with that? What should be their first move? What's one thing they need to do right now to make sure they're the one holding the steering wheel?
Firstly, they need to do a little bit of self-reflection. Question is, how are you currently showing up in your role? Are you just waiting to receive tasks and just executing those tasks? Or are you thinking ahead? Are you being more strategic? Are you asking the hard questions? And being more proactive. So the first thing is that self-reflection. How are you showing up? What are you doing? And then the second thing, once you get real honest with yourself, you see, like, oh, this AI impact what I do. If my job is to analyze spreadsheet, I'm just making this up. AI can analyze spreadsheet no time if you prompted her. Are you really adding? And I don't mean to be harsh. That to think about these things. Think about self-reflection. How am I showing up? What am I doing? And then how can AI impact? Can it totally replace? Does it make me more effective? So the time that I'm using doing this one task, it can be used to do something else. So you need to think about like how AI can impact what you're doing and how you're showing up. And then you need to think through how that is impacting the business. We're a business to make money. You need to be saying, how is it driving some of the goals and the things that my manager has put forward for our team to deliver on, this quarter, this year, whatever.
So that's how you should think about it. That's where I would start.
Thank you. That's very valuable. And I think it's practical enough for anyone to just go ahead and sit down, think a little, and start writing stuff on the whiteboard if they still have one. Everything you said about strategy, about vision, it's kind of sounds logical, but it's about data and frameworks and making intentional choices. And I think that's how you've built your career at the highest level. At the beginning, you mentioned having the influence of your family, also being a girl that grew up in church. I have to shift back to that because there's something else I noticed about you. And it happened at the very specific moment in your career. I was looking through the timeline of your career and there was Sundance. And I was like, wait a second. You had done a lot of stuff and you've built something, and you had momentum. And then you went and did that, which is not a typical, climb. It was more like a leap. And I want to know, how did you get to that decision? Because on paper, it's not the logical step, So what was it? Was it intuition? Was something you felt? It was just cool. How did you get there?
Honestly, dance had not been on my radar. Somebody had reached out to me via link, said, hey, would you be interested in this? Because, like I told you before, I'm loyal. I just stick with what works. Because I'm bringing and adding value. And I love critical mass. I think it's a fabulous place to work, people. Place new opportunity, great brands to work. But then my mom, I was talking to her about it, as I talked to her about a lot of career decision type things. And she said, there's no harm in just, going through the process and seeing what happens. You never know. They may not like you. They may not. It could be a non-issue. But she said, I'm bellyaching over whether or not I should respond. Just the stars may not align. I may not be a good fit.
So I continued to go through the process.
Of course they liked you. You agonized no decision. And I ended up doing it for a couple of reasons. One was the opportunity to work in a new industry that I had never worked in before, a section of nonprofit and entertainment. It was the opportunity to solve new problems. If you know anything about me, I like a challenge. I like to kind of dig in. I like to solve new problems. I don't spin on it. So those were two things that were very, very attractive to me in that role. And then the third part was just the opportunity to be a part of something as historic as Sundance Institute. Not many people get the opportunity to do that and at that level. So those three things are what tipped me over to kind of move forward with the opportunity.
Okay. I ask because I think there's a difference between women who follow the prescribed path and women who trust their own compass. And from everything I know about you, you seem to be the latter. But that requires a kind of faith in yourself, faith in timing. And if you say, oh, am I making a mistake? Being confident enough that you're going to be able to move past that because that's life. And even if they wouldn't have liked you, that was a leap that you needed to take just to know, okay, what could have happened if I go ahead and do that? I want to take a step deeper. Do you believe in destiny, or is it more about trusting your own instincts?
I grew up in church. I do think our steps are ordered if we listen. I do think that God has a plan for everybody. It's been only to benefit us. That's in Jeremiah, I think, 29. So if you believe that, then you also believe that he has ordered our steps. You call that destiny, fate, or whatever you want to call it, but I think that is true. Now, here's the kicker. God also gives us free will. And we get to choose. We get to choose everything from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep. The thing I've always told my kids is that the way to get better at living life is to make better choices. Every choice you make is either going to be a neutral outcome, a positive outcome, or a negative outcome. And those outcomes could range in scale. It could be a hugely negative outcome, small. It could be a hugely positive outcome, or it could just be small.
So the way to get better at life is to get better at making choices.
And it's, as everything you've said, it sounds so simple, so practical. But at the end of the day, you gotta be, present with yourself and whatever you believe in to be able to be led through those better choices.
I'm number one that's like, well, I hear from the, I do, before you make a decision, say, hey, give me a feeling if this is, give me an inkling if this is the right way to go, and trust those instincts. Get a gut feeling that, you know what, this is not sounding right. It's not, I'm not vibing with it. And I'll turn it down. But if I get the opposite feeling, like, you know what, this is feeling good. This is feeling
Positive. This is feeling like this might be okay.
Yeah.
I'll follow that instead.
Yeah, that aligns a lot with how I was raised as well. My grandfather, he was a minister of the church as well. So my whole family grew up like that. And my dad was not exactly someone to tell me, oh, the Bible says such and such in this chapter. But he would always tell me things in a metaphoric way so that it would make sense to me. And he always told me, like, hey, listen, you gotta listen to your heart. When something's right, you're gonna know it's right. And when something doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. And that's what I use as my compass whenever I'm making choices. And I think that it's so important that we're talking about that because sometimes I feel like young people nowadays feel kind of embarrassed to say that they're following their intuition or that they're following God or whatever. And I think that it's important that we are proud to share how we have been led through this life because it's a good life.
Just like,
I do. I teach my kids all the time. Like, you're never lucky. Get by it. Like, you may have consequences that you have to deal with
that you made a bad choice.
Yeah.
Always make a new choice.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to try.
Yeah. And it's a thing that sometimes we're so scared of. Like, what if I make a mistake? And what you just said really supports the opposite. Well, if you make a mistake, you can deal with it and then move on. But it's kind of like that.
You have to deal with those consequences, whatever they may be. Just that particular choice you made. But that doesn't negate that you can always make a new choice. You always do something different. You can always,
Turn things around. Now, you have to be willing to put in the work to, stick behind whatever decision you made in order to right the ship. But you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. We started this conversation talking about family, talking about your husband. We already talked about even your mother and sister-in-law. Your parents, the people who held you up. And we talked about how being supported allows you to lead differently. But there's another part of your story that I think matters so much, and we haven't talked in depth yet. You're a boy mom. And I'm really curious about this. Like, what has being a boy mom taught you that no boardroom experience, no P1 crisis in the middle of Halloween, no corporate achievement ever could?
You know what? Being a boy mom would have been fantastic. So I have 4 kids total. I got 2 older stepkids, 2 kids my own. The 2 that are my own are boy. They are stubborn, very strong personality. They have their own desires, dreams of what they want to do. And sometimes, you have to kind of go with the flow. Sometimes you have to be a strict kind of disciplinarian because you can see what's going down the wrong path. And one thing that being a parent has taught me is that everybody's different. And you have to engage with them
differently. They're just their own unique person, and you just have to
accept it. Figure out what works for this one, do it. Figure out what works for that one, do it. And I'll be honest with you, that has been the best leadership teacher ever because your staff is the exact same. They're different. They have different things that are going to motivate them. They have different things that are going to make them tick. There's different ways you have to talk to them to get the desired result that you want out of them. And part of being a good leader is knowing about all the tools in your tool belt, which is just that, and knowing who is better at what thing to deploy them effectively. You got somebody that's really good at this thing, but if you don't deploy them effectively, you're setting them up for failure. Yeah, yourself up for failure as well. So part of being a really good leader is understanding your staff, understanding what value they bring, understanding that not everybody is good at project work. They're just really good at doing, and they can't explain it to anybody else to save their lives, but they're really good at doing. So, if you make us a super senior dev that's really good at headphones, heads down, and you try to have him mentor a junior, that junior may come away with a horrible experience. That senior may not be very good at explaining things. So you just have to know who you got, how to deploy them, is what you try to achieve. And being a parent taught me that better than anything else. ever could.
I have the sense of it being a combination of who you are, what's your story, and also being a mom, because I think there's wisdom in that. There's something around raising kids, especially sons, that teaches you about leadership, about presence, about listening. And I was wondering if that's shaped how you show up at work, because it is different.
Work in an industry where I had to manage a lot of me. Very opinionated, strong personality, very smart, but there's a certain way you gotta approach, there's a certain way you have to lead in order to,
Get the desired result.
I want to say thank you for your generosity today, for the time you've given us, for being real, thoughtful, and so willing to share and go there. And before I leave, I have one final question, and I'm asking it because I think it matters not just for you, but for everyone listening who's trying to figure out their own path, who's wondering if they're on the right one, who's questioning if all of this is even worth it. So here it is. When all is said and done, what would you like to be remembered for?
I think I would like to be remembered first and foremost for being a good mom, a good daughter, a good sister, because you don't lift work. Right? So my corporate identity is secondary to my personal identity and always will be. So that's first and foremost. And secondly, I would just like to be known from a career perspective as a good transformational leader. Like somebody who can do the complex things and do it so well that it doesn't seem complex in the end. That is the legacy I would love to leave behind. If somebody thought of me and be like, she made this seem so simple.
And it's beautiful because I think that that's exactly what people needed to hear today. Not just the accolades, not just the climb, but the why underneath all of it. The person you're choosing to be, the impact you're choosing to have. So thank you again for your authenticity. And to everyone listening, if you're at crossroads, if you're questioning your path, if you're wondering whether to stay small or bet on yourself, I hope this conversation reminded you that your version of extraordinary is uniquely yours. Keep following that bright light inside you.